What if one of history's greatest treasures, wealth beyond imagination, sacred relics shrouded in myth, and secrets powerful enough to rewrite history, was still out there, hidden somewhere in the shadows of time? This isn't just the stuff of adventure novels or Hollywood blockbusters. This is the real, unsolved mystery of the Knights Templar, a brotherhood of warrior monks whose sudden rise to power, and even more shocking fall, left behind a trail of whispers, legends, and a fortune that vanished without a trace. Picture this: a treasure so vast it could have funded kingdoms, artifacts so sacred they were said to hold divine power, and a disappearance so complete that for centuries treasure hunters, historians, and conspiracy theorists have scoured the globe, chasing shadows and deciphering cryptic clues. The Knights Templar weren't just any medieval order. They were the bankers, the protectors, the elite force of their age, answering only to the Pope himself. Their wealth was legendary, their influence unmatched, but in the early 14th century, almost overnight, they were arrested, tortured, and disbanded by a king desperate to claim their riches. And yet, when the dust settled, their treasure was nowhere to be found: no vaults, no gold, no trace of the relics they were sworn to protect. It was as if the earth had swallowed it whole. So where did it go? Was it smuggled away in the dead of night, hidden in a secret network of tunnels, or buried beneath an unassuming chapel, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered? This is the mystery we're diving into today, a puzzle wrapped in conspiracy, tied with threads of historical fact, and tangled with myths that blur the line between reality and legend. We'll follow the trail of clues left behind, from the sudden arrest of the Templars to the whispered rumors of their escape, from the cryptic symbols carved into stone to the modern-day expeditions still searching for answers. Some believe the treasure lies beneath the streets of Paris, others swear it was taken to a remote Scottish island, or even across the sea to the New World. But one thing's for certain: this story isn't over, because somewhere hidden in plain sight or lost to time, the Templars' fortune still waits, and today we're going to uncover the secrets, the theories, and the astonishing truth behind one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. To understand how a small band of knights transformed into history's most powerful and mysterious brotherhood, we have to go back to the aftermath of the First Crusade. The year was 1119, and the roads to Jerusalem were treacherous. Pilgrims traveling to the Holy City faced bandits, hostile armies, and brutal conditions. That's when a French knight named Hugues de Payens and 8 companions made a solemn vow: they would devote themselves to protecting these vulnerable travelers. With little more than their swords and faith, they formed the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ, and of the Temple of Solomon, later known simply as the Knights Templar. At first they lived in poverty, sharing a single horse, their humble origins reflected in their name, but their mission caught the attention of Bernard of Clairvaux, one of the most influential churchmen of the era. He saw their potential and lobbied the Pope to grant them official recognition. By 1129, they weren't just another group of warriors, they became the Church's own army, answering directly to the Vatican. With this blessing came extraordinary privileges. They were exempt from taxes, they could cross borders freely, and perhaps most astonishingly, they were allowed to keep any spoils taken from their battles. But their real genius wasn't just in warfare, it was in finance. Pilgrims needed a way to travel safely without carrying fortunes across dangerous lands. The Templars created an early form of banking, where travelers could deposit money in Europe and withdraw it in the Holy Land using coded letters of credit. Kings and nobles entrusted them with their wealth. Soon, the order wasn't just guarding treasure, they were accumulating it. Lands, castles, even entire towns fell under their control. Their network stretched from Jerusalem to London, making them the first multinational corporation in history. Their rise was meteoric. Within a century, they built a reputation as unbeatable warriors and shrewd financiers. Their distinctive white mantles with the red cross became symbols of both piety and power, but with that power came envy and suspicion. How could a group sworn to poverty become so staggeringly rich? Were they still servants of God, or something else entirely? The stage was set for a downfall as dramatic as their ascent, and at the heart of it all lay the treasure that would vanish into legend. Their wealth wasn't just impressive, it defied the imagination. When we talk about the Knights Templars' fortune, we're not just discussing sacks of gold or chests of silver. We're talking about an empire built on three pillars: devotion, innovation, and sheer audacity. First, consider the donations. Kings, nobles, and even everyday believers poured gifts into the Templars' coffers, believing their contributions would secure divine favor. A widow might donate her farm, a king might grant them an entire estate. These weren't just acts of charity, they were investments in salvation, and they transformed the Templars into Europe's wealthiest landowners overnight. Then came their most revolutionary idea, banking. Imagine a medieval traveler setting out from Paris to Jerusalem. Carrying enough gold to fund the journey was like walking through a den of wolves with a raw steak tied to your back. The Templars offered a solution: deposit your wealth at one of their commanderies in Europe, and they'd give you a coded letter, a medieval version of a traveler's check. Present it at any Templar outpost in the Holy Land, and your money would be waiting. No risk of robbery, no loss to bandits. It was a system so reliable that even kings trusted them with their treasuries. At their peak, the Templars weren't just guarding money, they were moving it, managing it, and mastering it in ways no one else dared. And let's not forget their land holdings. From sprawling vineyards in France to fortified castles in Syria, their real estate portfolio read like a map of the known world. They didn't just own property, they made it productive. Farms fed their armies, mills generated income, and strategic locations gave them control over trade routes, turning every crossroads into a source of power. But here's where the rumors start. With so much wealth flowing through their hands, where did it all go? When the Templars fell, their ledgers vanished. Their vaults were empty. Some say the treasure was smuggled to Scotland, hidden beneath Rosslyn Chapel's intricate carvings. Others whisper it was buried beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, right where their order began. The truth no one knows for certain, but one thing's clear: the Templars didn't just accumulate wealth, they reinvented it. Their system was so advanced, so trusted, that its sudden disappearance left a void in Europe's economy. And that, more than any chest of gold, might be their greatest legacy, because whether their treasure still lies hidden or was lost to time, the Templars proved one thing: in the right hands, faith and finance could move mountains, or bury secrets deep enough to last 8 centuries. The Templars' downfall came not from the battlefield, but from the cold calculation of a king drowning in debt. King Philip IV of France, nicknamed Philip the Fair for his handsome features but not his dealings, owed the order a staggering sum money he had no intention of repaying. Instead of settling his debts, he hatched a plan to destroy the creditors themselves. On Friday, October 13, 1307, his soldiers struck at dawn, arresting Templars across France in a single, synchronized raid. The date was so infamous, it birthed the superstition surrounding Friday the 13th as a day of bad luck. The charges were shocking: heresy, blasphemy, even worshipping a mysterious idol called Baphomet. Under brutal torture, many Templars confessed to crimes they likely never committed, forced admissions designed to justify their persecution. Grand Master Jacques de Molay, the order's leader, endured years of imprisonment and torment before being burned at the stake in Paris. With his dying breath, legend claims he cursed King Philip and Pope Clement V, both of whom died within the year. But the most baffling part: when officials ransacked Templar strongholds, they found no treasure. The vaults were empty, the gold, the relics, the documents, all gone. Rumors swirled immediately. Some said the Templars had been tipped off, that a secret fleet of ships smuggled their wealth to Scotland or Portugal. Others whispered of hidden tunnels beneath Paris, where knights slipped past the king's men under cover of darkness. The most intriguing theory, that the treasure was never physical to begin with, that the real secret was knowledge, perhaps even lost Christian relics like the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant. Whatever the truth, the suppression of the order only deepened the mystery. For centuries, treasure hunters have scoured churches, castles, and remote islands, following cryptic clues like the markings at Rosslyn Chapel or the coded layout of Templar sites. What makes this disappearance so haunting isn't just the missing gold, it's the precision of it. An organization spread across continents, with thousands of members, somehow vanished their fortune without a single reliable witness. That level of secrecy suggests more than luck. It hints at careful planning, at loyalties that outlasted the order itself. Whether the treasure was hidden, dispersed, or destroyed, one thing is certain: the Templars' final act was their greatest illusion. And the world is still searching for the answer. The disappearance of the Templar treasure sparked legends so persistent, they've outlasted empires. One of the most tantalizing theories suggests the Knights saw their downfall coming. For years before the arrests, whispers of royal jealousy and papal pressure swirled through their ranks. If they suspected betrayal, wouldn't the world's most sophisticated bankers have a contingency plan? Some historians point to a curious detail. In the months leading up to the raids, Templar ships vanished from French ports, their cargo manifests suspiciously blank. Could these vessels have carried chests of gold, or something far more valuable to distant shores? Scotland emerges as a prime suspect in this medieval heist. Stories tell of Templar knights seeking refuge with Robert the Bruce, the Scottish king excommunicated by the same pope who condemned the order. The timing fits. With France hunting them, where better to hide than a kingdom already at odds with the church? The intricate carvings at Rosslyn Chapel, built decades later, fuel speculation. Among its stone vines and angels are symbols eerily similar to Templar seals, and beneath its floors, some believe, lies a vault untouched for centuries. Others argue the treasure traveled even farther, to Portugal, where the order simply rebranded as the Knights of Christ, their wealth seamlessly integrated into a new identity. Then there's the wildest theory of all, the New World. 2 centuries before Columbus, Templar ships allegedly crossed the Atlantic, guided by maps copied from the Library of Alexandria. Oak Island in Canada, with its infamous money pit, has drawn treasure hunters convinced the Knights buried their hoard there. The island's booby trap tunnels and cryptic stone markers feel like something straight out of a Templar playbook. But here's the twist: none of these theories are mutually exclusive. The order's network spanned continents. What if the treasure wasn't hidden in one place, but scattered like seeds, each fragment protected by loyal guardians? What makes these legends so enduring isn't just the allure of gold, it's the question of what the Templars valued most. Were they safeguarding earthly wealth, or something far more dangerous to their enemies? Ancient scrolls, heretical knowledge, relics that could shake the foundations of faith itself. Perhaps the real treasure wasn't what they hid, but why they chose to vanish it so completely. After all, the best secrets aren't just buried, they're disguised as myths, waiting for those who know how to listen. The charges against the Templars read like something from a medieval scandal sheet: bizarre, sensational, and almost too shocking to believe. King Philip's prosecutors accused them of spitting on the cross, denying Christ, and engaging in secret initiation rituals involving idol worship, the most infamous allegation. That they venerated a mysterious head or figure called Baphomet, described as a bearded, sometimes demonic idol. But here's the critical question: were these accusations genuine, or were they carefully crafted lies designed to turn public opinion against the order? Let's break down the so-called evidence. Under torture, many Templars confessed, but confessions extracted through pain are hardly reliable. Some later recanted, even as they were led to the stake. The testimonies were inconsistent, with descriptions of Baphomet varying wildly from witness to witness. One knight might describe it as a golden head, another as a cat or even a painting. This inconsistency suggests either mass hysteria or fabrication, and then there's the timing. Philip's sudden fervor to root out heresy conveniently aligned with his crushing debts to the order. But what about the rituals themselves? The Templars did have private ceremonies, like many medieval orders. Their initiation rites supposedly involved kissing the recipient on the mouth, navel, or base of the spine, a detail seized upon as proof of corruption. Yet similar practices existed in other knightly groups. The real shock wasn't the acts themselves, but how they were framed. A kiss of allegiance became a sign of depravity. A secret meeting became proof of conspiracy. The line between tradition and heresy was drawn not by truth, but by political necessity. Perhaps the most telling clue lies in the aftermath. When the Pope finally disbanded the order in 1312, he stopped short of declaring them outright heretics, a rare papal hesitation that speaks volumes. Even the Church seemed unconvinced by its own trial. So why did the charges stick? Because the goal was never justice, it was dismantling a rival power structure. The heresy trial was a medieval smear campaign, a way to turn the Templars from heroes into villains overnight, and it worked. Their reputation was tarnished, their wealth confiscated, or so the king thought. The real irony, the very secrecy that made the Templars so efficient also made them easy targets. Without public records of their rituals, rumors filled the void. Their silence became proof of guilt, and in that silence Philip found the perfect pretext to erase his debts and seize control. But the Templars' last laugh might be this: by vanishing their treasure, they ensured their legend would outlive their accusers. Because history remembers not the lies told about them, but the mystery they left behind, Jacques de Malé's final moments were as dramatic as his life. Bound to a stake on a small island in the Seine River, the last Grand Master of the Templars faced his execution in March 1314, with a defiance that would echo through history. As the flames licked at his feet, he didn't beg for mercy or recant his order's innocence. Instead, he issued a curse so potent, it became legend. With his dying breath, he summoned King Philip IV and Pope Clement V to meet him before God's judgment within a year. And then the unthinkable happened. Within weeks, Clement succumbed to a sudden illness, his body racked with pain. By November, Philip was dead too, struck down at the age of 46 during a hunting accident. Coincidence or something far more unsettling? The timing was too perfect to ignore. In an era where curses were taken as seriously as laws, de Malé's words struck fear into the hearts of Europe's elite. Whispers spread that the Templars had harnessed forbidden knowledge, that their treasure wasn't just gold, but power. Some claimed the curse was proof the order had dabbled in the occult, that Baphomet wasn't just a slanderous accusation, but a real force they'd courted. Others saw it as divine justice, a sign that even kings and popes weren't beyond retribution. But here's what's often overlooked: the curse didn't just target individuals. It was a warning to the system that had betrayed them. By invoking divine judgment, de Malé framed the Templars not as heretics, but as martyrs. And then there's the treasure angle. If the Templars truly possessed relics of unimaginable power, objects tied to Christ's passion or ancient wisdom, then de Malé's curse takes on a darker hue. Was his final act a literal malediction, or a coded threat? Some theorists suggest the dying Grand Master knew exactly where the treasure was hidden, and his words were a last safeguard, a vow that anyone who sought it unjustly would meet a grim fate. The swift deaths of his persecutors only fueled speculation that the order's secrets were protected by more than just human hands. Even today, treasure hunters weigh the risks. Is the curse mere superstition, or a 800-year-old warning still in effect? What makes de Malé's story so gripping isn't just the drama of his end, it's the unresolved questions left smoldering in the ashes. Did his curse accelerate the myths of Templar treasure by tying their legacy to the supernatural, or was it simply the final stroke of a master strategist? ensuring his order's name would never fade into oblivion. Either way, one thing's certain: in death, Jacques de Molay became something far more dangerous than a defeated knight. He became a legend, and legends don't stay buried. In the quiet countryside of southern France, a village so small it barely registers on most maps became the epicenter of a mystery that would ignite treasure hunters and conspiracy theorists for generations. Rennes-le-Château, a sleepy hamlet nestled in the foothills of the Pyrenees, seemed an unlikely stage for drama, until a priest named Bérenger Saunière arrived in 1885. At first, his assignment seemed unremarkable: a crumbling church, a congregation of poor farmers, and a stipend so meager he could barely afford firewood. But within a decade, this obscure clergyman was spending money like a nobleman, pouring millions in today's currency into lavish renovations, exotic artifacts, and even a towering villa with a view fit for a king. So where did the money come from? Saunière claimed it was donations from pious patrons, but the sums were too vast, the timing too suspicious. The turning point came during his church renovations. Workers repairing the altar reportedly discovered hollow pillars containing ancient parchments, their cryptic Latin texts hinting at a secret too terrible to reveal. Some say these documents pointed to hidden treasure, perhaps even the Templars' lost hoard, buried centuries earlier when the region was a stronghold of the order. Others believe the priests stumbled upon something far more explosive, evidence that could append religious history, like proof of Jesus' descendants or the true nature of the Holy Grail. The clues only deepened the intrigue. Saunière began acting like a man possessed, spending nights in the cemetery, erecting bizarre statues with coded inscriptions, and hosting mysterious visitors from Paris's elite. His ledger included payments for secret missions and transport of materials, yet no one ever saw what he was moving. Then there's the oddest detail of all: the church he renovated. Above its door he carved the phrase, "Terribilis esti locus est," this place is terrible, not holy or sacred, but terrible, a warning or a boast. Skeptics argue Saunière's wealth came from selling masses, a scheme where he allegedly took payments for fake religious services, but that doesn't explain his obsessive secrecy or the strange symbols he left behind, some mirroring Templar ciphers. Then there's the land itself. Rennes-le-Château sits atop a network of ancient tunnels, some dating back to Visigoth rule. Was the priest merely a clever fraudster, or did he truly unearth something that rewrote his fate, and possibly history itself? The answer may lie in his final act. On his deathbed, paralyzed by a sudden stroke, he reportedly summoned his housekeeper. Witnesses claimed his last words were a frantic, unfinished confession, just before he burned his private papers in the garden. Today, the enigma of Rennes-le-Château endures. Treasure hunters still scour the hillsides with shovels and ground-penetrating radar. Scholars dissect Saunière's notes, searching for hidden meanings in his jumbled sketches. And the church, it stands as he left it, its oddities preserved like a puzzle no one has fully solved. Whether the priest found gold, relics, or nothing at all, one thing's certain: he turned a forgotten village into a legend. And legends, like treasure, refuse to stay buried. Off the coast of Nova Scotia lies an island so shrouded in mystery, it's been called the world's longest-running treasure hunt. Oak Island, a windswept patch of land barely a mile long, has lured fortune seekers for over 2 centuries, not just for rumored gold, but for signs of something far older and stranger. The story begins in 1795, when a teenager named Daniel Magines noticed a peculiar depression in the ground, its edges lined with flagstones like some ancient marker. Digging down, he and his friends uncovered layers of oak logs at precise 10-foot intervals, but then water. The shaft flooded inexplicably, as if the island itself was guarding its secret. This was no ordinary pit. The deeper explorers went, the more elaborate the defenses became. Tunnels branched off, engineered to flood any excavation with seawater. At 90 feet, a stone slab was pulled up, its surface carved with cryptic symbols that some claim translate to, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. Then came the macabre discoveries, coconut fibers impossible for the region, and human remains, suggesting whoever built this wanted to send a message. This wasn't just a hiding place, it was a vault designed to defy intrusion. So where do the Templars fit in? The clues are tantalizing. First, the engineering. The flood tunnels mimic Templar-designed cisterns found in their Mediterranean strongholds. Then there's the inscribed stone. Its symbols resemble Masonic ciphers, and the Templars' survivors allegedly influenced early Freemasonry, but the most compelling link lies in the timing. After their purge, Templar ships vanished from European ports. Records show some may have sailed west, possibly carrying relics or documents too volatile to leave in Europe. Could Oak Island have been their new stronghold? Theories spiral from there. Some believe the pit holds the Holy Grail, smuggled out of France before the arrests. Others point to the island's strange alignment with Templar sites in Europe, as if marking a deliberate trail. Even the coconut fibers hint at distant connections. Templar traders had ties to the Middle East and beyond, where such materials were common. But skeptics argue the pit is a natural sinkhole, its artifacts planted by later treasure hunters. After all, despite countless digs, no definitive proof of Templar involvement has surfaced. Yet the allure persists. Modern expeditions have uncovered Spanish coins, medieval metalwork, and even a centuries-old human hand, but the real treasure might not be gold. If the Templars did bury something here, it was likely knowledge is something worth dying to protect, and that's the heart of Oak Island's grip on our imagination. It's not just about wealth, it's about the chance to crack history's greatest vault, and finally answer the question, what was so valuable, it required an island as its guardian? Rosslyn Chapel stands as a stone puzzle, its walls whispering secrets in a language of carved symbols. Nestled in the Scottish countryside just south of Edinburgh, this 15th-century masterpiece is so much more than a place of worship. It's a canvas of intrigue, covered in imagery that has fueled speculation for centuries. Walk inside and your eyes are immediately drawn to the ceiling, where hundreds of stone cubes dangle like frozen raindrops, each etched with patterns so precise, they seem to form some greater code. But it's the carvings that tell the real story, or rather, the many stories. Take the famed apprentice pillar. Legend says the chapel's master mason traveled abroad to study its design, only to return and find his young apprentice had completed the pillar flawlessly in his absence. Enraged, the mason struck and killed the apprentice on the spot, or so the tale goes, but look closer. The pillar's spirals mirror the biblical tree of life, while its base hides 8 dragons, their tails entwining roots that seem to sink into the earth. Some researchers argue this isn't just art, it's a diagram, perhaps marking a hidden chamber or even a path to lost Templar wealth. Then there are the green men, those eerie faces woven from leaves and vines that peer down from every corner. Common in medieval churches, yes, but Rosslyn's versions are different. Their expressions range from serene to agonized, as if holding secrets too heavy to bear. Templar tradition linked the green man to ancient knowledge, a symbol of rebirth and hidden wisdom. Could these faces be markers, pointing to something buried beneath the chapel's flagstones? And then, the clincher, Templar crosses, barely noticeable among the foliage, carved with a precision that feels intentional. One panel shows a knight riding a horse, his shield bearing the distinctive cross pété, the same emblem the Templars wore into battle. Nearby, a farmer tends crops while a comet blazes across the sky. To some, this is a reference to the Star of Bethlehem. To others, it's a star map, charting the alignment of celestial bodies on a specific date, one that might correspond with the Templars' final stand. But here's what makes Rosslyn so tantalizing: it was built a century after the Templars' fall, so why pack it with their symbols? Some historians argue the chapel's founders, the Sinclair family, were Templar descendants, safeguarding the order's legacy in plain sight. Others believe the carvings are misdirection, a medieval smoke screen to send treasure hunters chasing shadows. After all, despite countless scans and excavations, no vaults have been found. Yet the mystery persists because Rosslyn refuses to give up all its secrets. Underground radar scans reveal anomalous voids that could be natural cavities or sealed passages. The chapel's alignment mirrors sacred sites from Jerusalem to Paris, as if it's the final piece in a grander design. And then there's the music. In 2006, a scientist noticed that the carvings on the ceiling cubes resembled Chladni patterns, visual representations of sound waves. When played as musical notes, they form a haunting melody. Coincidence or another layer of the cipher? Whether Rosslyn holds gold relics or simply the ghosts of stories half told, one thing's certain: its walls were meant to speak. The question is, to whom and what are they trying to say? The Priory of Sion sounds like something ripped straight from a medieval manuscript, a secret society guarding ancient truths, its members tracing back to the Knights Templar, even to the bloodline of Christ himself. But here's the twist: this ancient order wasn't unearthed in some dusty archive. It was invented in the 20th century, a web of forged documents and cunning lies that ensnared historians, treasure hunters, and even best-selling authors. So how did a modern hoax become tangled with the Templars' legacy, and why does it still cloud the search for truth today? The story begins in 1956, in the French town of Saint-Julien-en-Genevois. A man named Pierre Plantard filed papers to register the Priory of Sion as a modest social club. At first, it was just a local group with vague aims. But by the 1960s, Plantard and his associates began planting evidence of something far grander: documents supposedly hidden in Paris's Bibliothèque Nationale, detailing a secret lineage of French kings descended from Jesus and Mary Magdalene, protected by the Priory across centuries. The Templars, they claimed, were just one branch of this hidden dynasty. The papers looked convincing: old parchment, ornate seals, even signatures from historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci. There was just one problem: they were all fakes. Plantard's forgery was meticulous. He borrowed real historical events, weaving them into his fictional tapestry. The Priory's supposed grandmasters included names like Isaac Newton and Victor Hugo, lending an air of credibility, and the timing was deliberate. Post-war Europe was hungry for mystery, for a hidden history untouched by the scars of conflict. The Priory myth offered a romantic alternative, a secret thread of enlightenment running through the chaos, but the real masterstroke was linking it to Rennes-le-Château. By tying his fabrication to the already enigmatic story of Saunier's treasure, Plantard gave the hoax instant gravity. Suddenly, every odd carving or buried rumor in the village became proof of the Priory's existence. The myth snowballed. In 1882, the best-selling book The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail cemented the Priory in popular culture, presenting its claims as serious historical research. By the time Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code fictionalized the idea for millions of readers, the line between fact and fantasy had blurred beyond repair. Historians were left scrambling to debunk what had become a global phenomenon. The irony: Plantard's own court testimony in the 1990s exposed the fraud. Under oath, he admitted the Priory was a fabrication, a bid for personal prestige, yet the legend refused to die. Why does this matter? Because the Priory hoax didn't just invent a story, it distorted real history. Templar research was suddenly sidetracked by wild theories about secret bloodlines, while legitimate scholars struggled to be heard over the noise. Even today, treasure hunters waste years chasing shadows planted by a 20th century forger. The lesson here isn't just about deceit, it's about our hunger for hidden truths. We want the Templars to have guarded something earth-shattering. We want history to be more thrilling than dusty records. And that desire makes us easy prey for stories like Plantard's. The Priory of Sion is a cautionary tale, a reminder that not every ancient secret is what it seems. But it also reveals something deeper. the Templars' real power lies not in fabricated bloodlines, but in their genuine, unresolved mysteries, because the truth. We don't need hoaxes to make their story fascinating. The historical Templars, their rise, their fall, their vanished treasure, are compelling enough on their own. The night before the Templars' arrests, something strange happened at the port of La Rochelle. Witnesses reported a flurry of activity, men loading crates under torchlight, ships slipping their moorings without the usual fanfare of departure. By dawn, the harbor stood eerily empty. 18 Templar vessels, among the finest in Europe, had simply vanished, no logs, no manifests, no trace of where they'd gone or what they carried. This wasn't just an evacuation, it was a disappearance executed with military precision. La Rochelle wasn't any port, it was the Templars' gateway to the Atlantic, a hub where their financial and maritime power converged. The order owned the docks, the warehouses, even the customs office. If you wanted to move treasure unseen, this was the place to do it, and move it they did. Contemporary accounts describe wagons arriving under heavy guard in the weeks before the arrests, their contents never recorded. Some speculate these shipments held gold bullion from Paris. Others believe they carried sacred relics, objects too volatile to leave in the hands of the king, but the real question isn't just what was on those ships. It's where they sailed. Scotland emerges as the most compelling destination. The timing aligns perfectly. Robert the Bruce, excommunicated and at war with England, would have welcomed skilled warriors, especially ones with deep pockets. Templar-esque carvings appear in Scottish chapels within years of the order's dissolution. Then there's the Sinclair family, who later built Rosslyn Chapel. They controlled the Orkney and Shetland Islands, remote outposts ideal for hiding treasure. But here's where it gets eerie. Norse sagas mention white-clad knights appearing in the North Atlantic around this time, their ships unlike any local design. Coincidence or proof the Templars fled farther than anyone imagined, yet Scotland isn't the only candidate. Portugal tells a different story. There, the order simply changed its name to the Knights of Christ, retaining not just their assets but their naval tradition. Vasco da Gama and Prince Henry the Navigator would later sail under their flag, their ships emblazoned with the Templar cross. Could La Rochelle's fleet have ferried wealth south to Lisbon, funding Portugal's age of exploration? The theory gains weight when you consider the sudden sophistication of Portuguese ships post-1307, as if infused with Templar knowledge. Then there's the wild card, the New World, a medieval Icelandic text. The Skalholt map depicts Greenland with startling accuracy and marks a land beyond it labeled Vinland. How did 14th century cartographers know of North America? Some argue Templar sailors, using nautical charts salvaged from the Library of Alexandria, crossed the Atlantic long before Columbus. The Newport Tower in Rhode Island, with its uncanny resemblance to Templar round churches, fuels these speculations. Even the Zeno map, created by Venetian navigators in the 1400s, shows lands they couldn't possibly have known about, unless they'd inherited older, secret charts. But the most haunting clue lies in the Templars' own actions. In their final years, they amassed an unusual fleet, not just warships, but sturdy cargo vessels with deep holds, ships built for long journeys, not coastal patrols. They recruited Basque and Breton sailors, men who knew the ocean's hidden currents, and then there's the cargo that didn't vanish. In 1308, a year after the arrests, a lone Templar ship docked in Cyprus. Its hold was empty except for a single chest, guarded day and night. When officials forced it open, they found nothing but bundles of wool, a decoy, or a final taunt from an order that had already outmaneuvered its enemies. The fate of La Rochelle's fleet remains one of history's great riddles. No wrecks have ever been found, no definitive records survive, just whispers of sails glimpsed off foggy coasts, of strange knights trading gold for supplies in distant ports, of a treasure so well hidden, it might still lie waiting beneath some forgotten shore. Whether the ships reached Scotland, Portugal, or beyond, one thing's certain: the Templars didn't just flee, They vanished with purpose, and wherever their voyage ended, they took their secrets with them. The most daring twist in the Templar treasure saga isn't buried in Europe, it's hidden across the Atlantic, wrapped in the enigmatic tale of Henry Sinclair. A 14th-century Scottish nobleman with Templar ties, Sinclair wasn't just any aristocrat. His family had sheltered fugitive knights after the order's fall, and Rosslyn Chapel, with its cryptic carvings, was their legacy. But Sinclair's story takes a radical turn with the Zeno narrative, a controversial manuscript claiming he sailed to a land called Estatiland nearly a century before Columbus. Could this have been North America? And more tantalizingly, was his voyage not just exploration, but a mission to hide the Templars' most sacred relics far from the reach of kings and popes? The Zeno narrative, penned by Venetian explorers 2 generations later, reads like a medieval thriller. It describes Sinclair's fleet encountering indigenous peoples, navigating strange currents, and even battling a wild people before establishing a settlement. Skeptics dismiss it as fantasy, but then there's Newport Tower. Standing in Rhode Island, this curious stone structure bears uncanny resemblance to Templar round churches, with its 8 arches and precise masonry. Carbon dating places its construction somewhere between the 14 and 1600s, but stylistic details suggest older origins. The tower's design mirrors the Templars' Jerusalem headquarters, right down to the orientation of its windows, aligned to catch solstice light. Coincidence or a breadcrumb left by knights who'd crossed the ocean? Supporters of the Sinclair hypothesis point to another clue: the Westford Knight. Near Boston, a glacial rock bears a weathered carving allegedly depicting a medieval knight in full armor, sword at his side. Local lore insists it's Sinclair himself, or one of his men marking their passage. Geologists argue it's natural weathering, but the outline is startlingly precise, right down to the shield's shape matching 14th-century Scottish heraldry. Then there's the Micmac tribe's oral history in Nova Scotia, which speaks of cloth-armored men arriving long before Columbus, trading metal tools and speaking a strange tongue. But the most compelling evidence might lie in the Templars' own nautical prowess. The order had mastered Mediterranean trade routes, and their surviving members in Portugal revolutionized ship design. The Zeno narrative describes vessels with deep drafts and square sails perfect for Atlantic crossings. Even the name Estatiland echoes Old Norse maps, hinting that Sinclair could have followed Viking routes, perhaps guided by Templar archives salvaged from Alexandria. Of course, the big question remains: why would Sinclair or the Templars risk such a voyage, relics? If the order truly guarded objects like the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant, Europe in the 14th century was a death trap. The Church's reach was long, and heresy trials relentless, but a new world that was a vault no king could pick. Imagine the Sinclair expedition not as a reckless adventure, but as a calculated exile, a final act of guardianship. The tower, the carvings, even the Micmac stories might not mark a settlement, but a hiding place. Critics counter with cold facts. No definitive archaeological proof ties Newport Tower to the Templars, and the Zeno narrative's authenticity is hotly debated. Yet history's greatest mysteries often live in the gaps between evidence and legend. Whether Sinclair's voyage was real or romanticized, it speaks to a deeper truth. The Templars' legacy wasn't just wealth or warfare, it was the power of a story too potent to disappear. And sometimes the most enduring treasures aren't gold or jewels, but the idea that somewhere, just beyond the map's edge, the past is still waiting to be found. Consider this: what if the Knights Templar didn't just vanish their treasure, but transformed it into something far more enduring than gold? The Order's financial genius reshaped medieval Europe, creating a system so advanced, its echoes still ripple through modern banking. And nowhere are those echoes louder than in Switzerland, where fortress-like vaults and unshakable secrecy have fueled theories that Templar wealth didn't disappear, it simply went underground, seeding the very foundations of Swiss finance. Let's connect the dots. The Templars didn't just store wealth, they invented ways to move it. Their network of commanderies functioned like early branch banks, allowing pilgrims to deposit funds in Paris and withdraw them in Jerusalem. Sound familiar? It's the blueprint for modern transnational banking. Now fast forward to their sudden purge, facing annihilation. Wouldn't the world's shrewdest financiers have a contingency plan? Some historians point to Switzerland's remote alpine valleys, neutral, defensible, and far from the reach of kings. The timing is provocative. Swiss cantons began asserting independence in the early 14th century, just as the Templars were disbanded. Coincidence or a strategic alliance? Then there's the curious case of the three keys. Swiss banking lore insists that vaults require multiple custodians to open, a practice mirroring the Templars' own security protocols. Their treasures were said to be locked away under triple seals, accessible only to senior knights acting in unison. Even the architecture whispers secrets. The great fortified granaries of medieval Switzerland, where cantons stored collective wealth, bear a striking resemblance to Templar preceptories: thick walls, limited access, and a penchant for discretion. But the most compelling link might lie in the Templars' final strongholds. As French troops closed in, knights fled to remote regions including the Swiss Alps. Local legends in towns like Sion and Bern speak of hooded monks arriving in the dead of night, their wagons heavy with unmarked chests. These stories gained enough traction that in the 1970s, Swiss engineers scanning beneath Sion's cathedral with ground-penetrating radar reported anomalous void spaces that matched the dimensions of Templar treasury chambers. Yet official permits for excavation were mysteriously denied. Skeptics argue that Switzerland's banking ascent was a gradual evolution, not a Templar inheritance. They point to the rise of the Habsburgs or the ingenuity of Protestant refugees as the real architects of Swiss finance. But here's the counterpoint. Why does the Swiss franc bear symbols, crosses, stars, and shields that mirror Templar iconography? And why, in the vaults of Geneva's oldest banks, do certain safety deposit boxes still require ceremonial keys modeled after medieval knightly insignia? The truth may lie somewhere between myth and ledger books. Perhaps the Templars didn't directly found Swiss banks, but their methods, their ethos of absolute trust, and their knack for turning gold into power certainly infused the system. Because the greatest treasure isn't always physical, it's the idea that wealth can be silent, invisible, and untouchable, and if anyone mastered that art, it was the knights who made an empire out of faith and finance, then vanished without a trace. The double-headed eagle stares back from ancient tapestries, its twin gazes fixed on past and future, one head crowned for earthly power, the other bare for spiritual humility. This wasn't just a heraldic quirk, it was the Templars' silent manifesto. In medieval Europe, such imagery was unheard of, yet here was an order of warrior monks boldly declaring their dual allegiance to both kingdom and heaven. Some scholars believe the eagle's split vision held practical meaning too, a metaphor for their banking system, where wealth moved unseen between continents. But others see a darker hint, that the real treasure wasn't gold, but knowledge divided for safekeeping, its pieces scattered like the bird's two faces. Then there's the Beausine, the Order's battle standard, a stark black and white banner fluttering above charging knights. At first glance it symbolized moral clarity, darkness for sin, light for purity. But field manuals from the era reveal a tactical genius buried in those colors. The banner wasn't just inspirational, it was a signaling device. In the chaos of battle, its high contrast pattern could relay commands across smoke-choked terrain. Some treasure hunters argue the Beausine's design hides more, that its alternating bands mirror the alternating layers of earth and stone in Templar-built tunnels, perhaps even charting the path to hidden vaults beneath sites like Acre or Tomer. Most controversial are the pentagrams etched into Templar chapels across Europe. Unlike the satanic associations grafted onto them centuries later, these 5-pointed stars held sacred geometry for the Knights. Aligned precisely, they map Venus' 8-year celestial cycle, a nod to the Order's alleged reverence for feminine divinity, but in castles like Chinon, where Templar leaders were imprisoned, the pentagrams take on a grimmer role. Carved into dungeon walls by captive knights, their proportions match architectural plans of treasure chambers elsewhere. Were these graffiti marks of desperation, or coded directions for those who knew how to read them? The symbol's true power lies in their ambiguity. Take the infamous Abraxas seal found in Templar ruins, part rooster, part serpent, wrapped in Greek letters. To medieval clergy, it screamed heresy, yet recent translations suggest it might be a complex cipher, its letters corresponding to numbered vault locations in their banking ledgers. Even the red crosses on their white mantles may have been more than devotional. Infrared scans reveal some were woven with metallic threads, causing them to shimmer under torchlight, a beacon for initiates during secret nighttime rituals. What connects these symbols is their duality, each one a bridge between the seen and unseen. That's why modern decoders are so fascinated. The pentagram isn't just a star, it's a compass pointing 5 ways at once. The bow scene isn't just fabric, it's a map woven in plain sight, and the double-headed eagle, perhaps the ultimate clue, a reminder that Templar treasure was never meant to be found whole. Like the bird's divided gaze, its pieces watch from separate hiding places, waiting for someone who understands that real wealth isn't in the gold, but in the code that binds it all together. At first glance, the Shepherd's Monument in the gardens of Shugborough Hall seems like just another elegant 18th-century folly, a carved marble panel depicting a pastoral scene inspired by Nicholas Poussin's famous painting, The Shepherds of Arcadia. But look closer and you'll spot the real mystery, a sequence of letters Awasvav chiseled ominously beneath the relief. For over 2 centuries, this cipher has defied explanation, sparking theories that range from romantic poetry to instructions for finding the Templars' lost treasure. The inscription's link to the Templars begins with the painting it mimics. Poussin's original work shows shepherds gathered around a tomb with the Latin phrase, et in Arcadia ego, even in Arcadia, I am here, often interpreted as death's reminder of mortality. But Templar researchers point to eerie details. The tomb's architectural style mirrors Templar burial sites, and the positioning of the shepherd's hands allegedly forms secret Masonic gestures, clues that Poussin, rumored to be a Priory of Sion grandmaster, embedded a deeper message. The Shugborough replica takes it further. Beneath the carved scene, those 8 letters glare like a riddle waiting to be cracked. Codebreakers have attacked the cipher with everything from Caesar shifts to medieval numerology. One popular theory suggests it's a dedication to the Anson family, the monument's patrons, Orgreave united with Oakover, Shugborough, Viscount Anson Venables Vernon. But why would such a mundane message require encryption? Others propose it's a Latin prayer truncated as an acrostic, though no convincing match exists. The most tantalizing theory ties it to the Templars via the Arcadian connection. In the 1980s, researchers noted that rearranging the letters could point to IOUVV Sav, Old French for G. Ouvre le Saint Vase, I open the holy vessel, a possible reference to the Holy Grail. Then there's the monument's hidden geometry. The letters are flanked by 2 stone tablets, one blank, the other bearing the letters D and M, which could stand for Dis Manibus, to the spirits of the dead, or more intriguingly, Deus Mundi, God of the world, a Templar-esque title. The entire structure aligns with the winter solstice sunset, a hallmark of Templar sacred architecture. Even the setting feels deliberate. Shugborough sits near Cannock Chase, a hotspot for Templar activity in medieval times, with local legends of underground tunnels leading to lost vaults. But the real clincher might lie in the monument's unfinished state. The carving lacks Poussin's distinctive 5th figure, a shadowy woman often interpreted as the Shekinah, or divine presence. In esoteric traditions, her absence signals hidden knowledge. Some researchers believe the cipher isn't a message at all, but a key, a sequence meant to be paired with another clue, perhaps in Poussin's original painting or even the landscape itself. After all, the Templars didn't just hide treasure, they built systems requiring multiple layers of initiation. Despite countless attempts, the Shugborough Inscription remains unsolved. But its persistence in popular culture, from Dan Brown novels to History Channel specials, speaks to something deeper than curiosity. It's the idea that answers might still be out there, etched in stone or buried in plain sight, waiting for someone to see the pattern. And whether the letters lead to Templar gold or simply a noble family's private joke, the monument stands as a testament to history's greatest magic trick, the art of keeping secrets alive. Glastonbury Tor rises from the English countryside like a beacon, its lone hill crowned by the ruins of a medieval chapel, but the earth beneath it whispers of far older secrets. Long before the Templars walked these lands, Glastonbury was already steeped in myth as the legendary Isle of Avalon, where King Arthur was said to rest. So why would warrior monks from distant Jerusalem take such an interest in this misty corner of England? The answer might lie in the tangled threads of sacred geography, where Arthurian legend and Templar mystery intertwine. The first clue is timing. In the 12th century, just as tales of Arthur's Round Table were spreading across Europe, Glastonbury Abbey made a stunning announcement: monks had unearthed the bones of Arthur and Guinevere beneath their grounds. The discovery was met with fanfare, drawing pilgrims and patronage, yet skeptics note the abbey had recently burned, and the costly rebuild required royal favor. Was this a clever ploy to secure funding? Perhaps, but here's where it gets interesting. The Templars were deeply embedded in the abbey's affairs, serving as its financial stewards and even constructing a nearby preceptory at Templicum. Their presence wasn't just administrative, it was territorial. Then there's the Grail connection. Glastonbury's folklore brims with references to the Holy Grail, from Joseph of Arimathea's alleged visit to the Chalice Well, whose waters run rust-red like blood. Medieval poets like Chrétien de Troyes wove these local myths into Arthurian romances, describing the Grail as both a sacred vessel and a spiritual quest. The Templars, with their rumored cache of holy relics, fit neatly into this narrative. Some scholars argue they didn't just protect the Grail, they became its literary guardians, embedding coded references to its location in their chapels and manuscripts. The Rotunda at Templicum, for instance, mirrors the layout of Jerusalem's Holy Sepulchre, as if mapping a path between Arthur's Avalon and Christ's city. But the most tantalizing link lies underground. In the 1960s, excavations at Glastonbury Tor revealed strange, labyrinthine tunnels beneath the hill, some aligned with celestial events, others leading abruptly to dead ends. Local legends speak of a secret chamber housing a spear and cup, artifacts echoing the Templars' rumored treasures. Even the Tor's topology is peculiar. Viewed from above, its terrace slopes resemble a three-dimensional labyrinth, a design seen in Templar sites from Chartres to Jerusalem. Could this have been a deliberate marker, a way to signal sacred knowledge buried beneath? Skeptics dismiss these connections as coincidence layered over wishful thinking. Yet the Templars' own actions suggest otherwise. During their suppression, several English knights fled to Glastonbury, blending into the abbey's monastic community. Records show a sudden influx of donations around this time: gold, jewels, and an unusual number of chalices. Were they hiding relics in plain sight, trusting the abbey's Arthurian aura to shield them? The answer might lie in plain sight. The Glastonbury thorn, a tree said to sprout from Joseph of Arimathea's staff, blooms unnaturally at Christmas and Easter, dates central to both Christian and Templar ritual. A botanical fluke, or a living symbol of secrets rooted too deep to dig up? Whether Glastonbury's ties to the Templars are fact or folklore, one thing is undeniable: the place breathes mystery. From the Tor's eerie contours to the abbey's sunken graves, it feels like a puzzle the knights left half solved, and if their treasure was ever here, perhaps it still is not in gold or gems, but in the stories that keep us digging. After all, the best secrets aren't found, they're remembered, and Glastonbury never forgets. When the Templars were dissolved across Europe, one kingdom refused to turn its back on them, Portugal. Here, the order wasn't destroyed, it was reinvented. Under King Denis, the Knights simply changed their name in 1319, becoming the Order of Christ. But this wasn't just a cosmetic rebrand. Their assets remained intact to lands, castles, even the same members wearing new insignia. The red cross on white mantles became a crimson cross on white, but the real transformation ran deeper. While Templars elsewhere were hunted, Portugal's knights became the driving force behind the age of exploration, their wealth and knowledge fueling voyages that would redraw the world map. Tomer, the Order's headquarters, stands as the ultimate clue to this transition. Its convent is a masterpiece of coded architecture, round Templar chapels fused with Manuline motifs celebrating the sea. Inside the Charola, an octagonal sanctuary mirroring Jerusalem's Holy Sepulchre, whispers of continuity, but it's the windows that tell the real story. Intricate stone carvings depict anchors, ropes, and armillary spheres, symbols of navigation that wouldn't become mainstream for another century. How did an order of monks suddenly master oceanic travel? Because they weren't starting from scratch, they were building on Templar maritime networks that had spanned the Mediterranean, now turned toward the Atlantic. Then there's Henry the Navigator, the Order's Grandmaster who arguably launched Europe's exploration era. His school at Sagres wasn't just a think tank, it was a Templar revival in all but name. Navigators trained there used charts suspiciously similar to those the Templars had guarded, detailing winds and currents unknown to other Europeans. Vasco da Gama's ship sailed under the Order of Christ's Cross, and when he rounded the Cape of Good Hope, crew logs describe invoking the secret of the Knights during storms. Even Columbus allegedly married into a Templar-descended family and accessed their archives before his 1492 voyage, but where does the treasure fit in? Tomer's underground tunnels, some sealed since the 14th century, have resisted full exploration. Ground scans reveal voids matching the dimensions of Templar treasury chambers. Local legends speak of a golden fleet, funded by the knights that sailed west long before Columbus, returning with wealth that vanished into the Order's coffers. The most compelling evidence, though, lies in Portugal's sudden ascent. How did a small kingdom on Europe's edge bankroll global exploration? Unless, of course, it had access to a reserve of capital, one that might have originated in Templar vaults. The real treasure may not have been gold, but knowledge, the Order's navigation techniques, their maps, their understanding of trade routes. These were the assets that turned Portugal into an empire. And if any Templar relics survived, they weren't locked away. They were used by explorers who sailed into the unknown under a cross that was never truly new, just waiting for its next chapter. Beneath the streets of Paris, hidden beneath centuries of rubble and urban expansion, lies a labyrinth that some believe holds the Templars' greatest secret. The tunnels of Le Marais district stretch for miles, ancient passageways carved from limestone where medieval masons once quarried stone for the city's cathedrals. But Templar researchers point to something far more intriguing. These tunnels connect directly to the Order's last known stronghold, the Temple Fortress. On the eve of their arrests, witnesses reported knights moving crates through these passageways under cover of darkness. Even today, sections remain unexplored, sealed off by authorities, or collapsed under the weight of time. Could these tunnels have been the Templars' emergency escape route, their treasure spirited away just hours before the king's men arrived? Then there's Dôme, a fortified cliffside village in southwestern France. Beneath its medieval houses, a network of caves twists through the rock, their walls covered in Templar graffiti, crosses, fleurs de lis, and cryptic symbols scratched into the stone. Local legends insist the Knights used these caverns as a temporary vault, stashing relics and gold until they could be moved to safer locations, the most compelling evidence. A series of man-made chambers, their ceilings reinforced with arches identical to those found in Templar commanderies. In 2010, archaeologists uncovered a hidden alcove containing a single silver denier, a Templar coin minted in the 13th century, untouched for 700 years. Was it dropped in haste, a breadcrumb left behind in the rush to conceal something far greater? But perhaps the most tantalizing underground network lies in Acre, the last Crusader stronghold in the Holy Land. Here, the Templars built a fortress so vast, its subterranean levels became a city beneath the city. When archaeologists mapped the tunnels in the 1990s, they discovered something astonishing: a perfectly straight passageway running half a mile from the fortress to the sea. Its walls were lined with niches that may have held torches, suggesting frequent use. Even more curious, the tunnel's exit emerges near the medieval harbor, where Templar ships could have loaded cargo unseen. Historians debate whether this was an escape route or a supply line, but one detail stands out: the tunnel's construction matches descriptions of the secret road mentioned in Templar trial records, a path used to move sacred things under cover of darkness. The common thread in these sites isn't just hidden space, it's strategic design. The Templars didn't dig random holes, they engineered systems. Paris's tunnels linked financial hubs. Dom's caves offered natural fortification. Acre's passage led straight to escape routes. If their treasure wasn't in one place, but many, moved through these subterranean arteries like blood through veins, it would explain why no single raid ever uncovered it. And perhaps that was the point, because the greatest trick the Templars ever pulled wasn't hiding their treasure, it was making sure no one could ever be certain it existed at all. The hunt for the Templar treasure isn't just a relic of the past, it's alive today, with teams of researchers, archaeologists, and even tech startups scouring the globe using tools the medieval knights could never have imagined. Take London's Temple Church, a circular sanctuary built by the Templars in the 12th century. Beneath its iconic floor, ground-penetrating radar scans revealed anomalies, hollow spaces that don't match any existing architectural plans. Could these be hidden chambers, sealed off during the Order's sudden dissolution? In 2019, a team from the University of Bristol conducted thermal imaging surveys, detecting temperature variations consistent with underground voids. Yet the church, citing preservation concerns, has denied excavation permits. The irony is palpable: a site once dedicated to warrior monks now guarded by bureaucracy. Meanwhile, on the sun-baked island of Cyprus, where Templars once commanded the port of Limassol, a private consortium has spent millions drilling into coastal cliffs. Local legends speak of a golden cave, a network of tunnels where knights allegedly stashed bullion during their retreat from the Holy Land. In 2021, core samples pulled from the bedrock contain traces of iron and copper metals often found alongside medieval silver and gold. But here's the twist: the tunnels are unstable, their entrances collapsed by earthquakes centuries ago. The real treasure might not be the metal itself, but the geological surveys suggesting the caves extend much farther than previously thought, possibly even connecting to the ruins of Colossi Castle, a Templar stronghold. Not all modern hunts rely on hardware. In the French village of Geysers, home to a formidable medieval castle, historians have combed through centuries-old tax records, uncovering references to payments for underground works, authorized by Templar officials just months before the arrests. These documents, long overlooked in regional archives, hint at a frantic digging operation, one that locals whispered about for generations. Using drone-mounted LiDAR, a French team recently mapped the forests surrounding the castle, identifying unnatural depressions in the earth that align with rumored tunnel routes. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source: a retired postman who recalled his grandfather mentioning a knight's door behind the castle's well. When investigators scanned the area, They found a sealed passageway, its entrance covered by centuries of rubble. Why does this legend still captivate us? Part of it is the sheer scale of what's missing. The Templars weren't just wealthy, they were the equivalent of a modern multinational bank. Their vanishing act wasn't merely about hiding gold, it was about erasing an entire financial system overnight. But there's something deeper at play too. The Templars represent the ultimate underdog story, a brotherhood outmaneuvering kings and popes, their secrets surviving persecution. Every scan, every dig, every deciphered parchment brings us closer to answering whether they pulled off history's greatest heist, or if the real treasure was the myth itself, a distraction so perfect, it's kept us searching for 800 years. The most fascinating expeditions aren't always the ones with the flashiest tech. In rural Devon, England, a farmer named Arthur Blackthorne made headlines in 2022 when his plow struck a stone slab etched with a Templar cross. Beneath it lay a lead casket, its contents still unopened due to legal battles over ownership. Forensic analysis revealed the casket's metal matches alloys used in 13th century French reliquaries. Is it a hoax, a coincidence, or proof that the Templars scattered their treasure in the unlikeliest of places? Until someone lifts that lid, the mystery remains, and so does the allure. Because in the end, the Templars' greatest legacy might not be what they left behind, but the fact that they made sure we'd never stop looking. From blockbuster films to best-selling novels, the Knights Templar have been resurrected countless times in pop culture, but rarely as the historical warriors and bankers they actually were. Instead, they've become shadowy keepers of ancient secrets, villains in elaborate conspiracies, or doomed guardians of supernatural relics. Take the Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown's seismic hit that turned Templar lore into a global obsession. Brown's version of the order isn't just about gold, it's about bloodlines specifically, the idea that the Templars protected the descendants of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The book's explosive success didn't just sell millions of copies, it rewrote public perception, blending scraps of real history with pure fiction until the lines blurred beyond recognition. Suddenly, tourists flocked to Rosslyn Chapel, not for its architecture, but in hopes of spotting clues to a Grail mystery that never existed outside a novelist's imagination. Video games have taken their own liberties. In the Assassin's Creed series, the Templars morph into a timeless cabal pulling humanity's strings, their medieval roots just one chapter in an eternal struggle. The games weave real locations like Acre and Masyaf Castle into a sci-fi tapestry where the Order seeks mind-controlling artifacts. It's thrilling entertainment, but it's also a perfect example of how pop culture amplifies the Templars' aura of mystery. Players aren't just learning history, they're stepping into a world where every cathedral vault might hide a piece of Eden. Then there's cinema. Movies like National Treasure and Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade turn Templar treasure into a high-stakes race against time, complete with booby traps and cryptic maps. The irony, these tropes aren't entirely invented. The Templars did build intricate strongholds and use codes, just not the kind that explode if you misread a Latin inscription. By exaggerating their secrecy, filmmakers tap into a deeper truth. The Order's real accomplishments were so advanced, they feel like something out of a script. But pop culture's biggest impact might be how it reshaped treasure hunting itself. Before the Da Vinci Code, theories about the Templars were niche, debated mostly by historians. Afterward, everyone had an opinion or a shovel. Reality TV shows like The Curse of Oak Island draw millions of viewers by framing the search as a modern-day Grail quest, complete with dramatic music and cliffhanger commercial breaks. The actual evidence, often thin, but the story is irresistible because fiction taught us to expect hidden chambers and last-minute revelations. The real Templars would likely be baffled by their fictional selves. They weren't occultists or Grail guardians, they were pragmatists who revolutionized finance and warfare, yet in a way, pop culture's obsession keeps their legacy alive. Every exaggerated movie, every game, every wild theory is a testament to one unshakable fact: 8 centuries after their fall, the Templars still hold our imagination hostage. And perhaps that's the real treasure, not gold or relics, but the endless stories we spin to keep the mystery burning. Let's be clear, there's a reason historians raise an eyebrow when the Templar treasure gets mentioned. For all the legends and expeditions, not a single verified artifact, document, or chest of gold has ever been definitively tied to the Order's lost wealth. That's not to say the mystery isn't thrilling, but separating fact from fiction requires a hard look at the evidence, or more accurately, the lack of it. Take the famous Templar vaults. When King Philip's men stormed their Paris headquarters, they expected rooms overflowing with riches. Instead, they found empty coffers. No piles of coin, no sacred relics, just silence. Skeptics argue the simplest explanation is often the right one. Occam's razor, the idea that the answer requiring the fewest assumptions is usually correct, suggests the treasure might not have vanished at all. It could have been seized quietly by the crown, melted down to pay off debts, or distributed among nobles long before the arrests. After all, medieval chronicles are filled with records of royal confiscations. Why would Philip, desperate to erase his financial obligations, let such wealth slip through his fingers? The absence of evidence might not point to a grand conspiracy, but to something far more mundane. The treasure was never hidden because it was already spent. Then there's the nature of Templar wealth itself. Their fortune wasn't just gold sitting in a vault, it was land, loans, and promises. Much of their treasure existed on parchment as debtors' IOUs, not as physical bullion. When the order fell, those debts evaporated. Kings who owed them money simply stopped paying. The real loss might have been accounting fiction, not a fleet of ships smuggling chests to Scotland. Even their famed relics are suspect. The Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant. These objects appear in Templar lore centuries after their dissolution, grafted onto their story by romantic writers. But here's where the skeptics face pushback. If the Templars had nothing to hide, why the coded symbols, why the underground tunnels? The counterargument is just as compelling: secrecy was their brand. As bankers and warriors, they thrived on discretion. Those cryptic carvings might have been financial ledgers, not treasure maps, and those tunnels, practical infrastructure for moving troops, not gold. The line between mystery and marketing blurs. The truth is, the Templar treasure endures not because of evidence, but because of its absence. A confirmed discovery would end the hunt. But a void that invites speculation, fuels dreams, and keeps us digging. Perhaps the greatest trick the Templars ever pulled wasn't hiding their treasure, it was making us believe it existed in the first place. But what if the Templars' treasure wasn't gold or relics at all? What if it was something far stranger, something not of this world? Among the wildest theories is the idea that the Knights discovered alien technology or artifacts during their time in the Holy Land. Proponents point to the sudden leap in their architectural and engineering prowess. How did a small band of warriors build vaults and tunnels with precision that rivaled the ancients? Some even claim the famed head they supposedly worshipped, Baphomet, wasn't an idol but a device, perhaps a communication tool or energy source from an advanced civilization. It's a stretch, yes, but consider this. Medieval chronicles describe Templar chapels humming with an eerie, unexplained resonance, as if the stones themselves held a hidden frequency. Could they have stumbled upon knowledge or objects far beyond their time? Then there's the Ark of the Covenant. Ancient texts describe it as a chest of unimaginable power, capable of leveling armies. The Templars excavated beneath Jerusalem's Temple Mount, where the Ark was last said to rest. Did they find it? Some researchers argue their sudden rise, and the Church's desperation to suppress them, hints at something more dangerous than wealth. Legends from Ethiopia to France whisper of the Ark's disappearance coinciding with the Templars' peak. Even their symbols seem to echo the Ark's descriptions. Their ornate chests mirrored the biblical design, and their rituals involved processions with sacred objects veiled in cloth, much like the Levites carried the ark. If they did possess it, its loss would explain why no vault ever held enough gold to match their legend. Some treasures aren't meant to be spent, they are meant to be feared. And what of King Solomon's gold? The biblical kings' mines were said to produce endless wealth, yet their location vanished from history. The Templars, named for Solomon's temple, allegedly uncovered scrolls during their digs, texts detailing mines from Ophir to Tarshish. Maps from the era show Templar ships venturing farther than any European traders, reaching West Africa and beyond. Could they have rediscovered Solomon's source? The timing fits. Their sudden liquidity spike in the late 12th century aligns with records of white knights trading in Timbuktu, a city flush with gold dust. Modern geologists have even traced unusual gold traces in medieval European coins back to West African deposits, long before regular trade routes existed. So why do these fringe theories endure? Because the Templars operated at the edges of known history, in places where myth and reality blur. When concrete answers vanish, imagination rushes in. But perhaps there's a deeper truth beneath the speculation. Whether their treasure was gold, relics, or something unfathomable, the Templars' real power lay in their ability to make us wonder. And 8 centuries later, that mystery still pays dividends. Perhaps the greatest treasure the Templars left behind wasn't gold or relics, it was the idea that history's most powerful secrets might still be out there, waiting to be uncovered. Their story endures not because we found their hoard, but because we haven't. In a way, their legacy is a mirror. Are we chasing actual wealth, or the intoxicating possibility that the past still holds answers just beyond our grasp? Consider how their influence stretches far beyond medieval vaults. The Templars pioneered concepts we take for granted today: international banking, secure transactions, even the idea of a passport. Their financial system was so advanced, it became the scaffolding for modern economies, yet we fixate on their missing gold, not their lasting innovations. That's the paradox. Their real treasure might be the systems they built, hiding in plain sight while we dig for chests. Their allure also taps into something deeper, a hunger for lost wisdom. The Templars weren't just warriors, they were collectors. From Jerusalem's ruins to Europe's monasteries, they amassed scrolls, maps, and artifacts. Some scholars argue their true fortune was knowledge, ancient geometry, alchemical texts, or even suppressed gospels. When they vanished, they took those secrets with them, leaving behind whispers of forbidden truths. That's why places like Rosslyn Chapel or Rennes-le-Château fascinate us. They're not just potential hiding spots, they're puzzles designed to be solved, teasing us with the idea that enlightenment might lie one clue away. But here's the twist: the treasure's elusiveness is what gives it power. If someone unearthed a vault tomorrow, the mystery would die. Instead, the Templars' legacy thrives on possibility, the unproven, the hinted at, the gaps in the record that let imagination run wild. Pop culture reinforces this, turning them into keepers of the Holy Grail or alien tech. The truth: they were human, brilliant, flawed, and ultimately mortal. Yet by disappearing their wealth, they achieved immortality. So maybe the real question isn't where the treasure is, but why we need it to exist. The Templars remind us that history isn't just facts in a textbook, it's the stories we tell to make sense of the unknown. And in that sense, their greatest gift isn't buried in a pit or a chapel. It's the enduring lesson that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to keep us searching. After centuries of searching, countless expeditions, and theories stretching from the vaults beneath Paris to the shores of Oak Island, the Templar treasure remains as elusive as ever. Was it gold, sacred relics, lost knowledge, or something even more extraordinary? The truth is, every theory, no matter how wild or meticulously researched, adds another layer to the mystery. Some believe the treasure was tangible, hidden in plain sight beneath a chapel or shipped across the sea. Others argue it was never about material wealth at all, but the secrets the Templars guarded, secrets so explosive they had to vanish them entirely. Think about it, the Templars weren't just warriors or bankers, they were keepers of stories, architects of systems, and masters of illusion. Maybe their greatest trick wasn't hiding a physical treasure, but convincing the world to keep looking for it. The hunt itself has become their legacy, a puzzle without an answer because the question is more valuable than the solution. Every broken cipher, every unearthed tunnel, every whispered legend keeps their name alive, long after their order fell. So here's the real question: does it matter if the treasure was ever real? The myths have reshaped history, inspired revolutions in art and science, and even fueled nations. The Templars didn't just leave behind gold, they left an idea. The idea that history isn't just what's written, but what's waiting to be found, and that's a treasure no one can steal. Now over to you, what's your theory? A vault in Scotland, a shipwreck off Cyprus, or something no one's even considered yet? Drop your thoughts below because the hunt isn't over. It's just getting interesting.